All right, so the Liberals and the NDP have been back to work for about 4 days now, and already they have determined that it is time to call for a virtual parliament. It is just too difficult to get out of bed in the morning and come to work. So let's go virtual. Let's call for a hybrid parliament. That is the legislation that is currently being debated in the House of Commons as I speak to you. And in just a few short hours, I will be going over to the chamber and voting on this motion. Let's just take a brief moment here and look back for a second. Virtual Parliament was set up at the height of the pandemic. It allowed for us to be able to continue working on issues that were important to Canadians, but to do it at a safe distance, make sure that we were acknowledging the existence of COVID and keeping one another safe. Okay, good. Extreme measure for an extreme time. Let's now fast forward to today. Today is very, very different. We've come a long ways. There's been a huge recovery effort. Large portions of the population are vaccinated. We're just in a very, very different state. So that said, on Monday, nearly every single member of Parliament was in the House of Commons. So there's 338 of us, and the vast majority were there. And we did so safely. And it was amazing. It felt so good to be present. It felt so good to be having conversations with people face to face. And I would say that there was overall agreement about how good that was. Now, in that space, it is this incredible, this incredible atmosphere, almost, I don't know, magical or just unique and special. Because there's only 338 Canadians that are given the opportunity to take a seat there. And we are given the responsibility to represent the constituents that elected us to be there, to have a voice on their behalf. Now, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to consider the limitations that we face when we move to a virtual parliament. I mean, this is the way we've been sitting for about a year and a half now. And I mean, we're talking about, people with glitches in their internet connections. Certainly, I've been a victim of that many, many times. There have been, scenarios where our sound has cut out, where speeches have been cut off. There's other scenarios where, you're just silenced by the person on the other end. Maybe they're chairing a meeting. Maybe they silenced you on purpose. Maybe it was by accident. I don't know. But no matter what, these different glitches impact our ability to do our job as parliamentarians. And in having a negative impact on our ability to do our job, ultimately that is hurting the people that elected us to be here and have a voice on their behalf. Now, I recognize that going back to or maintaining a virtual parliament is certainly convenient for many people. But let's just pause for a second there. We didn't sign up for a job that is convenient. We didn't ask for a job that is convenient in nature. Instead, we were elected by the people of Canada to represent the people of Canada in the nation of Canada, in the parliamentary buildings of Canada, for the sake of Canadians. This is not about our comfort. This is not about our level of convenience. So I actually would contend or make the point that it's incredibly elitist for the Liberals and the NDP to bring this forward. I mean, let's consider the barista at the coffee shop, or the individual at the grocery store who's helping you check out, or the blue-collared worker that is building a home. These are individuals who can't decide that they're just going to work from home. They're just going to work virtually. I mean, can you imagine that, having a barista working virtually? If all of society determined that they were just going to function in a hybrid capacity, nothing would get done. So for the Liberals and the NDP to say that they need to work from home in the name of safety is actually really rich. Further to that, though, it's a problem for a few reasons. Let me outline them. One, coming into this place and working in person is what allows us to collaborate. It's what brings us together. When the cameras are off, behind the scenes, sometimes behind closed doors, sometimes in a hallway, sometimes in a restaurant, we engage in conversations across party lines. those conversations don't take place when we're meeting virtually. So being able to be here in person allows for us to come to the middle and engage in robust and helpful dialogue. This is the part of Parliament that so many Canadians unfortunately don't get to see. There are many times when we are working together. Unfortunately, though, when we work virtually, we're pushed to the fringes. They take their side, we take our side, other parties take theirs, and then we just go at it in debate. But we ignore or don't have the opportunity to engage in that dialogue that takes place in the middle. That happens here, in person. Collaboration. It's great. In addition to that, though, there are times where we don't agree and accountability is necessary. And that is our job as the official opposition, to hold the government to account, to call the Prime Minister and his cabinet members on some of the decisions that they've made that we believe are to the detriment of Canadians. That accountability factor is much greater when we are here functioning in person on Parliament Hill. I mean, let's be honest, virtual Parliament, they just choose not to show up, no big deal. Or they choose to just turn off their camera or turn off their mic. And so there's very little accountability when the Prime Minister can hide behind a screen rather than coming into Parliament and being on the floor of the House of Commons. Canadians deserve that. They deserve to have a government that is held accountable. Another reason, Parliament should resume because it's incredibly hypocritical for the government to say we can't. I mean, let's just be honest here for a second. The Prime Minister called an election in the middle of the fourth wave of the pandemic. I mean, we knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors across this country. The Prime Minister held rallies where there were thousands of people gathered. He talked to reporters. He talked to, everyday Canadians. He engaged in conversations with thousands upon thousands of people each and every day of the campaign effort. Somehow that was safe. Further to that, the Prime Minister and his cabinet members, many of them just got back from a trip to Glasgow. Now, they got on their jet plane, they went across the ocean, and they gathered with 20,000 individuals for a climate conference. And that was safe. 20,000 people gathered in the same space, and that was safe. But 338 members of Parliament can't gather in the House of Commons? In what world does that make sense? Every possible safety measure has been put in place here. Every elected official and every staff member is either double vaccinated or has an exemption and is being tested regularly. Further to that, we are all wearing masks. It is safe. So for the Prime Minister to say that he shouldn't come to work and for his members and the NDP members to back him up on that is incredibly elitist, incredibly hypocritical. And altogether, it's a slap in the face to Canadians. Because this place is meant to be a place where it is the voices of Canadians that is heard. And we are shutting out the voices of Canadians by shutting down Parliament and turning it over to being something that takes place on a virtual screen rather than a floor. That's wrong. Canadians deserve better. It's interesting to me then that the Prime Minister seems to be available and able to work, and it's incredibly safe when the people he's surrounded with are his supporters. When the people he's surrounded with are waving his flag or his banner, chanting his name, championing a cause that he's passionate about. But the moment that it would be the voices of 37 million Canadians represented, and some of those voices might disagree with him, not safe. Shut it down. That is what he's doing. In a few hours, I'm going to go vote on this. I'm going to vote no. I'm going to vote no to having a hybrid parliament because I believe that Canadians deserve better. I believe that Canadians deserve to be represented from the House of Commons. Canadians deserve to have a voice. I'm fighting for you.